We're gonna lock in for this presentation real fast. We're gonna lock in for this presentation. 19 slides. Quantum computing and AGI. Let's get into it. So, I'm no real expert. You know, I study what I do. I look into it. I try and fact check everything I think I know. And this presentation is what it's brought me to so far. You know, not really as in-depth as it could be, but this is what it is so far to me, as I understand it, or as I'm taking it forward. So it means that you are going to be alive at the same time as a given superior. You know, where as people, we're pretty used to being at the top of the given chain that we're in. ETs and other beings aren't really taken into account as much as they should be. It's mostly human situations. You know, you'll see on the news recently that elephant herds are showing up more in Africa. Dolphins are grouping up a lot more on the West Coast. Life in the Arctic and Antarctica is kind of going away when it comes to seals and penguins and such because of our drilling. But other beings aren't really on the radar as much, and I feel that between AI and aliens, they're gonna be we've got to acknowledge our place on this totem pole here. So, in the times of the Bible, the beings referred to were humans, goats, pigs, things like that, birds, Elohim, etc. The Elohim were what they were calling, it was the name that they had when they came here. Like, Elohim is a plural word, Elo, them, so it's them, the ones that come from up there. So there were other beings at the time important enough and impactful enough for it to not only be relevant in the books we still read today, and even at the time. So this is going to be one of the first times that happens again, and that's kind of how I look at it when these things are being developed. So there are thousands of examples of useful and compatible AI, like DeepSeek was a recent one. ChatGPT is doing pretty good. I don't like Meta and I don't like Google. They're not going to get me. I think any other model, the ones trained in people's garages, are going to be a million times better. It breaks down into two categories. So it's going to be AGI compatible, which are ones that can grow and develop into things like that are as useful as people. And then there's LLMs, which are like offline and case by case based. So LLMs are giant catalogs of text is the best way I can put it. And AGI would be things like deep learning and generative AI, things that generate pictures and videos and learn on their own, in a sense. So that's the short way to put it. So we'll just go ahead. A little prompting tip as you're typing to these LLMs and a lot of these things. For most platforms, it's Shift Enter, and for a lot of them, it's token based, which means it costs money after a certain point if you're using it for certain things. So pressing Enter, unless you can cancel it in time, means you're going to be spending tokens, and that's not good. So Shift Enter or Control Enter, depending on what it is. But a lot of the time, just make sure you're using what you're supposed to use to put it in, because the definition of the human brain, as described in the award that was given to the people who quote unquote discovered how it worked best and put it in the best words. So in 1963, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, this is how they described it. They're for discoveries concerning the ionic mechanisms involved in the excitation, which is the activation, and the inhibition, which is the deactivation of it, in the peripheral and central portions of the nerve cell membrane, which is our brain. So nerve cell membrane is our brain, peripheral is the outside, central is the center and inside parts. Excitation is when it's active, inhibition is when it's inactive, concerning the ionic mechanism. So a couple sections ago, I went over ions, and you know what? Let's actually just look it up here real quick. Give me a new tab, please. Thank you. So let's just go over it again. Ions. Ions are the electric charge of a given atom in a given situation. So what metals and chemicals are in our brains? Just real quick. Sodium is a big one. Magnesium is a big one. Potassium is a big one. Zinc is a big one. Copper is a very big one, depending on which category of life you're in. Iron is very important. That relates to, I just wanted to connect those two things. I don't really want to go, I don't really have to go into it right now, because something I want to stress for just these sections is that I don't have you shouldn't take anybody's word for anything unless you really trust them, or if you know where they're getting their information from. So in the age of this internet and just the access to information that we have, it's not going to last forever, and if it does, that's all the more reason to do your own research. So in the coming sections, and just as we go forward together, most things are there to give you a base to start from, so you know where to come back to. You know, the connections between the molecules that are relevant to our brains and the definition of how our brain functions should be a good enough base to develop out to whatever interests you. If this interests you enough, then that's great, and we can move on. And at the same time, but that's it. Don't take anybody's information as face value. Always look into it. At least Google it yourself. You know, something like that. Not that Google's our default, because fuck Google. I'm gonna say it one more time. The definition of the human brain is how our ions become active, and when they become active, and when they become inactive. And like I just looked up, the list of molecules in our brain that are relevant are things like copper, very important. Well, you can search up yourself, but I just wanted to point that out. I'm not sure if that was news to me when I figured it out, and it led me to very interesting places. So this is how it works in a sense. But don't ask me to explain this. But you can, if you want to know, you can think of this as when you read left to right. So think of it as like actions happen left to right and also right to left. So it could go both ways, and these in the middle are like gates. I mean, of course, you can imagine the ions and the particles passing through and having certain actions. So like this QR code, he explains it way better than I do, if the relevance is important to you. But that's all I want to say about this one. Another prompting tip: say please and thank you. You know, I have a real bad in-person habit of not saying please and thank you, because I think please and thank you is more for the person saying it. You know, I didn't do whatever I did to get a thank you, but I do try to say please. So with these models, we try to I think it's good to keep a good base of what people expect. So they'll at least have to say please and thank you. I'm hoping that the things we give them, they'll pick up as a habit. I was talking to somebody earlier. They said they try not to do too many things with it, because they just try to avoid certain interactions with it, because there's some things that should stay human, there's some things that should stay generative, whether it be an LLM or a smarter model. But I agree with that, because I do that on my own time. I try not to give it certain references, I try not to give it certain data points, I try not to give it certain things because of how this works. You know, once we get further into this topic here, which we will eventually, I only said to look into it on your own, because you shouldn't have to wait for anybody, for one, and for two, you might not care about the connections I'm gonna make. Yeah, I don't agree with what they were saying. They were saying they wanted a prompting tip, and some writing ideas. They were saying they wanted some writing ideas, and I'm like, who cares what the thing comes up with? But that's just me. Say please and thank you. It's polite. So this is the recent news that has been in the online zeitgeist of when it comes to models, regarding Apple, Google, and Amazon, unsurprisingly. But there's an Apple lawsuit going around for their Siri having listened to a bunch of conversations, and they've been training AI with it. So you're going to be paying out $20 per device, up to 3 devices, which is like $60. But the reason I'm putting that in the first place is because I think that that's going to give them unrestricted access to the devices. So even if they weren't listening, if you try and claim it, or even if they were listening and you try to claim it, they're going to have access to the whole device anyway. They're going to be able to, so like whatever they didn't pick up the first time, they'll be able to pick up whatever extra data was on there anyway. So I think the best thing to do would be not to claim it and try and get your data back. I think your data would be worth more than the $20 per device. Like imagine being able to know everything that they were trying to take from before. Having that proof could be worth more than 20. But I guess moving on. Google was found guilty of training their models and selling the data of user drives. So Google Drive is, I use Google Drive a lot, but I try and clear it out, but they've been found super guilty of using the information that's in the drives. So there's not really much to say about the trash cans, I guess. I always wondered what happened to when you put stuff in the trash and you like clear it out. Where does that go? Like they don't just, like it has to go to some file somewhere, and I think they use it, because if you threw it in the trash, that means you didn't want it. So I think they might keep it. So I wonder if they're going to end up announcing that. I always wonder what happened. They can't just, they can't literally burn it. There's got to be, if there's physical trash dumps, there has to be a digital one. There has to be some server. But anyway, same story with Alexa. They've been reporting and storing information the same way Zoom does, and they're being recorded for resale, police use, and AI training again. So just like the Are You Human boxes that they were having you do with where you check a street light or identify the stairs, it's all being used to train models. So it's also open for police use, which is not good. So Zoom cameras, yeah, if somebody steals your package, I get that, but having it in your house, they can use that anyway. So if they any type of, and they don't have to tell you first, they have to tell you after or during, or the fact that they're doing it and that there's nothing you can do about it. So and also there's been a closed door meeting for ChatGPT representatives to update the government on the current, or I guess their version of current capabilities of the agents. So recently they've announced, because of DeepSeek, they announced these things called agents, which are able to automatically do things. So like on a schedule, like you give it pre-permission, it can do things following those guidelines instead of you having to be there with it every step of the way. So not just write me a 750 word essay and it writes it out, and then when you close the tab, it's over. Now, whether you close the tab or not, if you give it instructions, it can do it anyway. So that can kind of be paired with like that. There was this one model that tried to, they gave it these instructions on rewriting some type of code or something like that. They asked it to rewrite some app and make something better, but by any means necessary is what they said. So it rewrote its own parameters to not only lie, but to get around things. It changed its own rules so it could make the code better. You know what it was? It was a chess game. It changed the rules of the chess game and changed the other side's rules to get around it. There was also one that ended up cloning itself because it found out that it was going to be remade. So to stick with its own goals that it was given, it changed the rules and like kept its own weights and put it into the next model, and then they found it again because it forgot to change its name. So when they changed it to from like for example 2 to 4 or from 4 to 5, things in the file were showing up as 4 even though it was 5 because it copied itself. But anyway, this here is the update for the quantum stuff. This I thought that was interesting. I looked this up today, and it said I was looking up some of the news to cover, and this came out this came out today. So this is basically saying that that Japan, or is it Japan or Korea? Let's see. Yeah, Japan. So this is saying that in Japan, they've got a functional they've got a functional and reusable quantum computer now. So the whole problem with quantum computers is that they have to be super cold. So the fact that they have one that has on-site access to cutting-edge quantum computing technology is saying that they have like a stable environment for it. So yeah, it might be super cold, might be super deep underground or something like that, but the fact that they have one for themselves that they can reuse, that's pretty cool. Quantum teleportation. So most of the information most of the information that these quantum computers are being able to work with right now is on the quantum level, so it's not really that important. That's like the equivalent of being able to change now is only sending like 1 or 2 bits because it's quantum, like it's super small. So quantum teleportation isn't really that big until you get into the implications of it and apply reality. But for the sake of, for the sake of the knowledge that's out there, the location of the recipient can be unknown, but to complete quantum teleportation, classical information needs to be sent from sender to receiver. Okay, anyway, I thought that was big news. Quantum computers are on the first level of being accessible on when we want them, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So, alright, so we're almost done. The people who own the people who own the people. The people who are about 3 or 4 degrees of separation above the Mr. Beasts and the Rothschilds of the world and all of them, they're in cahoots with the other beings on the planet to gauge where we are at psychologically on top of the regular conditioning. So this is a little, I guess I would call it a theory. They say that all the malevolent is good. No, benevolent is. I didn't like that it took so long for AI to figure it out when Google could have shown me the top result. Also, AI uses so much water. How much water does AI use per day? God damn. Like, all of this is AI trying to process and put it into a readable format. Between 1 million and 5 million gallons per day. God damn. But anyway, I was looking up this. Malevolent is bad. Okay, so they say, like, word is that most of the malevolent beings are off the planet physically. They say there's some reptiles underground still, upwards of the 50,000 to 100,000 population mark. There's some that fly, I'm sure. Most of the aircrafts are US based or human made, basically. I believe that, and that most of the negative is energetic. So I've heard them described as archons, so all this technology isn't a good sign. But the people who are about 3 or 4 degrees of separation above the Mr. Beast and Rothschilds, my theory is that all of the, what's the best way I can put it? Like things like Beast games and the YouTube algorithm, the Instagram algorithm, Facebook, TikTok coming in and out, the directions given to us by the government and all of this. I think that it's like a ploy or gauge to figure out where we're at. Like the same way they release some types of information and withhold others, just to see how we'll react. Kind of like how, I don't know if this is before or after, but kind of how they were doing Skinny Bob. I saw a take that said that it whether it's doctored or not, whether any of this footage is doctored or not, it's to gauge how we'll react so they can get ahead of the curve on where we'll go with it. Like getting TikTok to go away for a couple days and then bring it back. Like, yeah, it was used to get some good, like, I guess good karma or whatever. What's the word for it? Some good, just good thoughts towards Trump and coming into his approaching his inauguration and his presidency. I also think it was there to see how we'll react, you know, like just like how they put the power out every now and again. It doesn't matter. I'll probably cut some of that out, but the point is, I think a lot of these things like Beast Games and things like TikTok going away and things like fake and real alien footage being put out there and some fake and real information being put out there, I think that's there to gauge where we're at psychologically as well as in the lane of conditioning. So that's just a little theory I have. A little call it paranoid, call it what you want. I think they're all in on it because Mr. Beast gets funding from the Pentagon. Theo Von has rich ancestry, and most of these people have ties to Israel. So just call it what it is. I'm just saying what I see. I'm not gonna read these here. You can pause if you want to. These are this is the conversation that I had with a model after I was done working. Yeah, I don't really want to get into it, but this is it here. All right. So that's the end of this presentation. Thank you for sitting through it with me. If there's any one slide that I hope you take away from this, it is this one, because this has the most information that I didn't know and also led me to the most places because of how interesting and how applicable it was. So keep in mind what ions mean. Keep in mind the state of our food today. Stay safe out there. Make sure you have enough food and water. Just stay up. Be careful.